2. Welcome to the Franchise Woman podcast, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships forged. I'm Rebecca Monet, CEO and Chief Scientist at Zoracle Profiles, along with my co-host, community advocate, speaker, author, and entrepreneur, Tracy Kawa. So we have two very special guests today that work together, Paul Dorsey and Chelsea Maltz. Paul Dorsey is an expert in area developer and master franchise sales, revenue generator, business development, and leadership. He's also a speaker and franchise trainer. Paul is also the managing partner and primary stakeholder within Jantize. We're going to talk all about that here in just a second. Chelsea is franchise development and client relationships professional with nearly 2 decades of experience comprising of in-depth knowledge in franchise consulting, training, brand development, sales management, and network. So you guys have been working together for just a little bit of time in almost a hand in glove kind of a situation with Jantize. And those of you that don't know Jantize, it's a janitorial service that's been around for 28 years, right?
Long time.
So welcome aboard, guys. We're looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm honored and privileged to be part of the podcast today. I heard only a special few gentlemen are even accepted into the
the club.
And it's not just women, it's moms in franchising too, right?
Right.
We have Ryder here.
Full representation.
Yeah, Ryder. Hey, Pumpkin.
Of course, now he's not going to look at the camera, but
Well, yeah, that makes two males in one podcast.
Show.
Yeah,
we're record breaking here.
I love it. So how old is Ryder right now, Chelsea?
Ryder is 5.5 months.
He's adorbs.
Thank you.
Yes. He's so
thank you.
So, okay. Paul, have you already had an opportunity to hold Ryder?
I have not, although we're heading to Orlando for the big franchise convention down there the 1st of December, and it's probably getting my first stop to hold Ryder because my kids, Cameron's now 16 and Peyton, my daughter, is 14. And after a long, stressful day as an entrepreneur and a business owner and a growing, emerging franchisor, I remember the best times was leaving the office at, I would say 5, sometimes it was 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night, going home, holding my children, smelling their hair, and all the worries of the world would just disappear, which again, this is really what it's all about, family, and not only growing our families, but my franchise family that I take a big responsibility on too, with both the unit and the area developers. So what a great intro. Thank you.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for being here, guys.
Yeah. And Chelsea just taking every moment, every moment.
That's what I'm trying my very best to do, which I know we'll touch on in the next couple of minutes with one of those questions.
Yeah.
It has been very interesting.
All right. So I would love to get started with knowing your story of origin, Paul, because I understand that you didn't just fall into franchising. You've been in it since you were 18.
Yeah, some people say I was born a franchisor.
Let's hear it.
Well, I had one of the largest paper routes in Springfield, Massachusetts when I was, 11 to 15 years old. We delivered over 500 papers every single day. Now, it wasn't me and my dad in the back of the station wagon, although he helped a lot. I ended up hiring a bunch of my friends. So Tommy, Jimmy, Stubby, Schmitty, Coey, they are all out delivering 20 papers each. Springfield Republican was paying me, 10 cents a paper, and I'd pay those guys 7 cents a paper. So I've always been a entrepreneur trying to figure out ways to make extra money here or there. And then you talk about pressure, forget about franchising. If you don't have Mrs. Smith's newspaper on her porch by 7:15 a.m., you're going to hear it.
We got to keep those customers happy. I can relate. You know, We want them happy. So what an interesting, so technically in many ways, you were a franchisor as an 11-year-old, where you were providing a product, a service, a system to deliver a product, and then you just took a cut. And
There you go.
put your friends.
Yep. Sometimes Tommy's bike would break down, so I had to pick up the slack and deliver his papers and stuff too. And then, throughout college, I was in business 101, I guess. And then I moved in and spent 15 years in the restaurant business, where even waiting tables and bartending, I always thought that of my little business. I mean, these 4 tables here were my business. So, and I was always taking care of my customers. Sometimes there was a line that you want, smoking, non-smoking, or Paul's section. And just because I'd want to become friends and have such good caretaking of those guests that were coming into the restaurant. Lo and behold, somebody said, "Hey man, you need to get a job in sales." And I know somebody in the industry, which so happened to be facility service janitorial. And I'm like, right, I'm not going to do that. Anywho, I went and applied for the job, and they said, "Hey, we're going to give you," I don't know what it was, $400 a week. And all you got to do is go out and knock on doors. You're going to be an outside sales guy. I'm like, outside sales guy? That sounds fun. And this is long before we had pagers or trackers. I don't even think we had beepers yet. Maybe we did have a beeper. But in Charlotte, North Carolina, the first year, I just went out and knocked on every door. And I sold over $1 million worth of janitorial services. Because
Wow.
it's one of those things where it's essential even back in the day, but nobody notices whether the trash is dumped or the carpet is vacuumed. It's just clean. I literally used to think elves would come at nighttime and clean the building.
I wish that were true. Yes. Chelsea, how about you? What was your entry into franchising?
I was technically born into it.
Wow.
Just like he is. My family started a business of their own back before I was born in the early 80s. And then they were teaching people how to be able to do the same thing, but without a contract. And they were getting burned left and right. And they quickly learned what franchising was to be able to protect themselves. And they started that franchise back in 2001. And I was helping out in everything from before they were a franchise with announcing my dad at 3 years old in front of his little workshops, and all the way up until I joke and say being the janitor of our company, but then becoming the franchise salesperson. And I actually helped our franchise have the fastest growth it experienced, as well as bringing in the most diversity. Our first female franchisee, our first African-American, our first handicap, our first non-English speaking franchisee. And it was a wonderful experience because not only was I helping to build my family's business, but I was also having a lot of fun doing it. I was training them. I was doing webinars and different sessions, the sales. I kind of wore many hats because it's a family business. That's what you do. And then from there, I was working with all the different broker networks, and that was really newer at that time. So it was very exciting to be a part of those networks and going to those conferences and making those networks and everything. So unfortunately, in 2017, when my family decided to stop franchising, I really missed it. And I kind of just became what I joke and said, a glorified office manager. And I said to my dad, this is no longer me. This is not my calling anymore. I need to follow my passion, which was franchising. And so I reached out to a broker network out of Orlando, Florida, and I was able to speak with them and just to get back in touch and say, hey, do you know anybody that's looking for someone with my experience or my talent? And it turned out that they were having conversation, but it was actually an interview, and they ended up offering me the job. And they said, can you move out to Orlando? That's where we need you. I was in New Jersey. So I said, okay, give me 3 weeks. And that's what we did. So a couple of months shy of getting married with my my now husband, and we still made the trek out here and drove the 26-foot Penske truck ourselves.
Nice.
Got down here. And then I was there for about 4 years and had the opportunity of being the relations manager with them and the production controller. And that's how Paul and I were then introduced to each other. He was a member of the network, and we were able to, I worked with him, made sure all the brokers were understanding what kind of candidates he was looking for, how his model was different than most of the other members, because he's an area developer model as opposed to the unit franchises. And so we had a lot of exposure with each other that way. And then shortly after that, I then moved over to the complete opposite side of sales, which was the law side of franchising. So that was just by chance. I had a great opportunity to work in the client relations team with a wonderful law firm, and they had me on as a client relations manager. So I helped the business owners become franchisors and pulled all that data out of their brain and presented it appropriately for the attorneys to do the actual legal contracting for them, and then supported them after they were launched, and making sure they understood what sales they needed to do, what networks they should be a part of, what CRMs and programs and things of that nature. And then during that experience is when we were blessed with Ryder. And so now being back into that world after maternity, trying to figure things out as where I again met up with Paul, and excited about the future.
What a great story. I didn't realize that. I wish we would have met, 4 or 5 years ago. You would have been living in Charlotte right now.
There you go. And Charlotte's a beautiful area.
I think Ryder's happy that he's close to Disney.
Oh, very much. That was mandatory. When we moved here, as soon as we got our licenses for Florida, we were Disney members.
Nice.
Never looking back.
But I think both of your stories speak to the so many portals of entry into franchise, and not only the portals of entry, but also all of the different roles, the positions, the different departments that make franchise work.
I agree. There's so many.
For sure. So, okay, so we're up to now. Paul, what was it about Jantize that attracted you, got you excited about it? I mean, it's janitorial, for goodness sake. So tell us what about the business is exciting for you.
So just a quick correction. It's Jantize, 1A, 1I. I didn't want you to go on any further. And of course, that awesome Jan man behind me, right?
Yeah.
And we still have customers that say, hey, why did you choose us? And they say, well, we loved your logo. Just to know, I designed the logo years ago too.
Oh, you mean it's not you, Paul? I thought it was you.
Funny, it was me back 15 years ago, perhaps.
Wow, impressive.
So, with all kidding aside, and I understood the business model because I worked with some still very friendly competitors, and of course, from my background, I worked for enough jerks, and now I work for the biggest one of all, which is myself, right? It's my dad's saying. What people don't really understand sometimes at Jantize America, through our area developers, some people call them master franchises, regional directors, those candidates, those area developers, and I can name Jim and Robert and Guy and Sean and Derek, and the list goes on and on. We use our gifts of sales and marketing to build the sales team, to go out to knock on doors, to bring in the customers, so that those unit franchisees, Miss Parham and Sarah and Lisa and John and Tim, who are more driven to be operational or customer service people who don't want to do any sales. Mm-hmm. So the unit franchisees focus on the operations and customer service. The area developers are sales and marketing machines. And then my office at the National Franchise Support Center, we take care of all the billing, the credit, the collection, all those hassles and headaches, behind the scenes things, IT development, etc. So long answer, I got in it so I could support and grow those small businesses, the Miss Parhams of the world, who just so happen to be in the janitorial industry.
Tracy, what kind of popped up, I don't mean to interrupt you because I know you got a brilliant question, but this kind of mirrors what you did, Paul, with the newspapers, right? You did the sales, you created the customers, then you built the team to service those customers. And Jantize does the same thing. with your area developers?
Yes.
Wow. I'm sorry, Tracy, go ahead.
And with and with work and going door knocking with the
Yes.
janitorial services company. So this is kind of like a repetitive theme throughout your life, is it not, Paul?
I've never thought of it that way, but now that you said that, I'm like, well, yeah, I had to go out and knock on doors and bring in new customers so Mikey, Jimmy, and Coey could deliver the papers. Yeah, someone had to do it.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. I love seeing themes and patterns in people's lives. It's very, very cool. So
It's really
Paul,
weird.
what do you think, Paul, is the biggest obstacle that you see for entrepreneurs, right? As they're taking over their franchises, what are some of the biggest obstacles that they face that you have to support them with?
Well, that's a great question, but as a longtime emerging franchisor, part of buying in or becoming part of the franchise is to follow the system and, of course, save yourself time, energy, and money. So the obstacle becomes when the franchisee, move off a Jantize of ABC franchise, does not follow the system, or they think they have a better way
Mhm.
than the proven track record. That's one of the biggest obstacles. I don't need him to tell me how to flip hamburgers or pull smoothies or not. I've got a better way. I've got more. They don't follow the recipe, which is lined out for success. That's a huge obstacle at ABC franchise, including Jantize America.
Yeah, it's so true. Chelsea, I'm going to go over to you because you're kind of new to Jantize. What was your attraction? What got you excited about working with Paul?
Well, I'll be very honest with the whole situation after having the baby and figuring things out. I kind of said out to all of my franchise family through LinkedIn, I'm deciding to be more of a stay-at-home mom, and I'm just looking for small projects and little things here and there, maybe something part-time, but possibly in January could be able to take on some more, because that's when I know that he'll be, about 7 months or so, and he can sit up and all the rest of that stuff. So I made that post, and it was just kind of just letting people know that I was still alive. And but Paul reached out, and we had a wonderful conversation, and he started sharing with me that he needed some additional support in these different areas, and offered me the opportunity with flexibility and understanding of, needing to possibly sneak out at this time for able to do this for the baby or have a doctor's appointment. And so it was a perfect opportunity that I didn't really foresee happening. It was just kind of fell into my lap with that opportunity, and I'm having a great time, and we're learning from each other and growing together either way. And I'm not exactly sure what my future is going to be, but I know that we're developing it together, and I'm excited about all of the potential.
Don't tell me I was the only one who reached out to you, though. You must have had hundreds.
No, I did have a couple of people,
Thank
but
you.
I think it was more conversational. I don't think they were necessarily in that same type of opportunity that you kind of were a little bit more brave to say, hey, I want this, and I think that you're good for it. Others were kind of just, oh, that's great, congratulations, which was wonderful. Don't get me wrong, I loved getting the love. But yeah, one or two other people did reach out, but it just wasn't the right fit necessarily. And I knew Paul, so it was wonderful that I already was familiar with his model and what he's looking for. So it kind of just made sense that there was less training necessary or hands-on that would have been needed with other companies and opportunities.
So
I think I'm sorry.
go ahead, Trace.
I think you raised such a good point, Chelsea. So I guess I want to throw this out to both of you. You were talking about fit, like it was a great fit for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like how does somebody know if which there are so many franchises out there, right? How does somebody know what is a great fit for them? Or how do you know what a great fit for Jantize is?
I'll let Paul answer, and then I can be able to give my own feedback.
Okay.
So again, from my perspective as the paper boy, and right, Tracy, you don't know anybody until you're in a relationship a business relationship or any other relationship at least 6 months later. So even at franchises where and you line out this big legal document and you go over every page and you sign it off, and then next thing you know, people are down the rails. Or whatever. I hire a new sales guy in Greensboro, and it's like, hey, here's the list. You got 8 o'clock, you do this, 10 o'clock, do this, and next note, they're not there. So it's been my, I don't know it's been my, is mantra the right word? You don't know anything until 6 months after the fact, is kind of, no matter how much due diligence, no matter how much. Chelsea and I were great friends, and she was the most professional person in all those broker groups that I've dealt with over the years too. So there definitely was an attraction to her professionalism and experience and all those things. But I mean, who knows tomorrow? Look, Ryder, I mean, God bless him, what a wonderful young guy, but anything could happen. And it goes back to, we've had conversations too where, hey, my wife was a landscape architect, one of the only licensed landscape architects in the state of North Carolina. And guess what? We went to daycares, we had babysitters, and finally we're like, you're staying home. So who knows what could happen in the future with anybody in franchising. And now I'm babbling a little bit, but
well, I'll feed off of that, Paul. I think it a lot of it has to do with seeing if somebody has a particular passion. So if they're really, interested in working with children, if they're really interested in working with seniors, if they are more of a numbers generated person. So I'm going to give Rebecca a little plug and say that a Zoracle profile is a wonderful way to be able to help these candidates find the right thing. Because the reason why I wanted to add into this to begin with is the fact that sometimes they don't know what they want.
No.
And you need to help them recognize some of their characteristics and some of their personality traits and some of their actual physical time frames to be able to find the right match, and not to mention their financials. So they might want to be the next McDonald's, but they're not nearly capitalized for that type of opportunity. But there might be something like Muya Burgers that's a brand new franchisor that's available for them, or a whole variety of different things. And that's also why it's important, at least in my opinion, to work with a professional that knows inventory, as opposed to just going out there and doing your own research. These folks don't know how to read an FDD, and attorneys write them for attorneys. They don't write them for the public. So finding the right concept, using a professional, using different personality tests is a way to be able to learn more about yourself, as well as find that right opportunity. Because I know many candidates that have become franchisees of concepts they never thought they would ever do, just because it actually turned out to be a better fit for themselves, their current day, and their future.
I'm in so much agreement with that. Sometimes we're attracted to things that aren't good for us, right? Whether it's a certain relationship, or in this case, business. So knowing yourself definitely helps. Screen in, screen out concepts that are the best fit. So offline, guys, we were talking a little bit about pet peeves, meaning things that are driving you nuts or you wish people would know. Paul, in the world of franchising, tell me a little bit about things that get under your skin or that are pet peeves that you wished you could change.
Well, again, great question, very thought-provoking question too. And the first thing that would really come to my mind, as my mind's spinning with about 10 different things, would really be maybe some of the misconceptions of franchising, whether you get rich quick or it takes 10 years to make any money, and maybe it's somewhere in between, or the systems, or how the franchisor has an iron fist and you follow their plan or else, which we discussed a little bit earlier too. So there's so many misconceptions. As if I was new, and how I was new even 12 years ago and came into franchising, I was going to start my own franchise. It was going to be called Guardian Custodial Services, where I watched over those unit franchisees. We have a Christian mission statement. I go into that, all these neat things. But the fear factor, I started talking to some of those lawyers, Chelsea, and they're like, it's $100,000. We're going to take your firstborn child too, and you can go to jail for life if you, oh my God, I better buy into a franchise. So there's a lot of fear factor. There's a lot of misconceptions. And then lastly, there's a lot of, is it acronyms? Where ADFDD, UFOC, FOC. There's so many different acronyms where I can't even keep up. What does that mean? Franchise DevCo or Dev. And then I just mentioned it too. The last one, and this is my biggest pet peeve, and you'll see soon see some parodies coming out on a special website. There's no such thing as the franchise industry.
Mm-mm.
And if we're all professionals, again, we talk, there's the cup industry and the apparel industry and the trucking industry, but there's no such thing as the franchise industry. Now, is there a better wording that we're all in this pond together, selling and marketing and growing our independent brands, perhaps? But there's no franchise industry. It's a oxymoron, right?
What do you call it?
I call it a space, the franchise space, or the franchise model is how I reference it. Would that be appropriate, Paul?
I think perhaps the franchise space.
Or market, franchise market.
Well, again, I guess we list the groups who's all involved in this. It seems to go so well, the franchise industry. And my 7th grade teacher too is probably so proud of me right now. But so of the groups, you have the franchisors, you have, again, that they all have teams of salespeople. Then you have the outsourced franchise sales organization. Then you have the broker networks, and then you have the IFA. Then you have all the suppliers, including yourself, involved. So again, I don't know, maybe it's the franchise world.
Ooh, franchise world. I like
I
that.
like that.
Like the world of beer.
And I'm good friends with a lot of franchise competitors. I'm great friends with a lot of franchise brokers. Again, Chelsea coming on and helping at Jantize America. We met when she was, somewhere else, and you guys too. So there's a lot of great people in the franchise world. But again, it gets so confusing with all the...
It does. So, Chelsea, having worked on several different sides of the world, the franchise world, I'm going to adopt it. I really am. In fact, I'm kind of looking at the logo behind your head there.
Oh.
Kind of looks like the world in 2 pieces, right? So
Yes.
I love it. So, Chelsea, from your perspective, what's your pet peeve or the thing that grinds you that you wished you could change in the world of franchising?
Ooh, not finding the right matches. The folks that have employee mentality are not going to be successful. They might be excited. They might, be a captive audience. They might be a great conversationalist with the different salespeople. But if it's not, if they're not peeled away properly to identify their true work ethic, they're not going to be successful. And so I think maybe that kind of more leads to taking the time, people that rush through things. If you rush through a sales process, if the broker is what I joke and say that they're a ding dong salesman, where they just go ding dong at the door and drop it off and just wait for their check with their hand open. Or if the franchisor is not open to having the brokers involved in the sales process and just excuses them, that is not a good synergy, and it rushes things, and it doesn't allow you the true opportunity to identify who these people are characteristically, and not just on paper, to be able to see if they're going to be successful. It does not matter what the franchise is. Employee mentality is not going to help, and they're going to be expecting handouts and hand holding all the time. And franchisors, that's not what this is designed for. And so finding that and fixing that would be a wonderful thing.
Wouldn't it? Let's just wave a magic wand, guys.
Right? Exactly.
So,
could I ask you guys both those same questions so I get your perspective on
the pet peeve, Tracy will look at it from a training perspective. I'll look at it from an entrepreneurial perspective. And offline, you kind of hit on this a bit earlier, and Chelsea kind of hit on it, is many folks see this as a get rich quick scheme of some sort, that I don't have to put a lot of energy into this. So they're attracted to the business model because they think they're going to have more freedom than working as an employee. What they don't realize is they're now entrepreneurs, and they'll probably work harder than they've ever worked. And if they're not willing to put that energy in, and have that grit and that scrappiness and that tenacity, I think that's a dangerous place to be.
Great. Although
me-
then too, Rebecca, there's a lot of franchisors now that they do it all, right? We do everything. We even got your leads for you. We can even, even the Jantize area developers, we've separated the sales and marketing from the operations. So but then we don't want to get into this subject either with the whole NRLB and all the rules and regulations upcoming for 2024, but no longer call me corporate. I'm the National Franchise Support Center, right? Don't call, my guys aren't the headquarters in Raleigh. That's the Regional Franchise Support Center. So there is a lot of legalities that we got to make sure that we're teaching the franchisees and the potential new candidates, whatever they come ABC franchise, right?
Yeah. Wow.
Absolutely.
So for me, I just want to mention that I think my pet peeve really has to do with in a company when somebody is promoted because they've done great work in their role, but they're not given the management skills to go along with that. I see a lot of that, and that to me is my pet peeve. But I'm sure at Jantize you do phenomenal training.
Well, that's Chelsea's area. That's where we got Chelsea.
That's right.
Work in progress.
Kind of thing. Oh my gosh, what a wonderful conversation. All right, we only have a few more minutes, and I have an off the wall question. I'm fascinated with people and how they tick, as you guys know. What is the most interesting prospective franchisee that you've ever met? What's the most interesting story, most interesting person that says, I want in, I want to become a regional developer, area developer? Got any great stories you can tell us?
I have a number of great stories. I don't know which order that you want them in, because early on I sold some territories where I knew that guy wasn't going to be the best area developer within that territory. Although they showed up my door with checks, they called every day, they could do it, they wanted to do it, win, 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 fight, fight, fight. And we awarded them the territory. And of course, going back to that gut instinct, I was like, I knew I shouldn't have sold them that. And there wasn't any big legal fiasco or anything because all the T's were dotted. But again, I knew that he wasn't the right guy. Matter of fact, too, it was another one too in Orlando. The mom who was working, he bought I was like, my daughter and or my son-in-law are going to, run the territory. And I said, oh, really? Are you going to be willing to fire them when they're not fulfilling the obligations? I don't want to go down that road either, though, but I never forget having a number of great conversations, reviewing the FDD, flying out to Dallas, playing around to golf with a big Dallas Texan with his hat. Well, he cussed and he swore and he threw his golf club on the golf course, and it was everybody else's fault. And he said something really not nice to the girl bringing around the Cokes. And then we went back and he wrote his check, and I'm like, I'm going home, right? I don't want to do business with you, because I can imagine how you're going to work or act in the conference room. So again, there's a lot of decisions made, not necessarily on financials, because we could finance and have things set up in-house and get SBA loans and have different great outsourced companies do that. But a lot of it goes back to awarding that franchise and the partnership that you're creating with that area developer or even unit franchisee.
I think we should employ a screening technique called Let's Go Golfing, because I'll tell you one thing I do as a single woman looking for men, and we go on a date. My goal is to take him to Disneyland or some other kind of amusement park, put him in a line where he has to wait a long time, and see how he responds to that whole situation. It allows me to see, does he have patience? Is he kind? Can he have a good conversation? So I think we put a new screening process in place for prospective area developers, franchisees, that includes a round of golf. And if they don't behave, we say no. Or if they are, then we, the way we want them to be, then we bring them on board. So I love that screening technique.
Well, again, you learn, I kind of contradict myself, because you learn a lot about somebody in 4 hours, but then it takes 6 months to really get to know them too, right?
Yes. But how we are in one thing is how we're likely going to be in another thing. So I think the logic that you used there was quite brilliant. How we make decisions about X is similar to what we're going to do with Y. Oh my gosh, guys, I could have this conversation forever with you, but we want to make sure we let our listeners know how to get hold of you and how to learn more about each of you. And of course, more about Jantize.
You can call me anytime on my cell phone, 704-449-3687. I'd be happy to return your call.
Perfect. And Chelsea, we can find you on LinkedIn, right?
100%. Yeah, I was just going to recommend that's probably the best way. My time of day and things normally exist, so that way I can always check. But LinkedIn, yes, Chelsea Maltz at LinkedIn.
Beautiful. Thank you both for joining us today and sharing your hearts and your thoughts about the world of franchising. I find your business model, Paul, fascinating in that it does allow franchisees to come on board that don't have those broad spectrum skill sets. They have good management skills, good operational skills, but that area developer helps with a lot of that front end sales and marketing component. So it really allows a good partnership between the area developer and the franchisee. I love the model.
Well, thanks, Rebecca. Maybe you can help
Ryder
me,
likes it
because
too.
even today I received 10 would-be referrals from franchise brokers, and it's the unit franchisee guy who has $10,000-$15,000 and wants a janitorial business. And now 10 years later, I'm still banging my head against the wall because people see Jantize and think janitorial, or again, they see McDonald's and think flipping hamburgers. Well, McDonald's is the world's largest real estate company, right? So going back, there's more misconceptions.
Right.
True.
Thanks.
You have a great article about that too on your website. Forget the
Oh.
misconceptions.
Excellent.
There you go. Thanks
Thank you, ladies,
again,
for having us.
guys. Tracy, I'm going to punt it over to you. You're so good at wrapping up everything we learn in these interviews. So I'm going to pass it to you.
I have to say, I really enjoyed this particular interview. I mean, first of all, Chelsea, you and I have worked together before. You are just always so eloquent.
Thank you.
She's always been a phenomenal public speaker. You have a great way that you kind of wrap up ideas, and this little angel here, that's been such a pleasure for you to bring him.
Thank you for letting me have him.
Yeah, absolutely. And with you, Paul, thank you for bringing to my mind the idea of freedom with entrepreneurship, because I think a lot of times people do think of, having their own business, having freedom, but now what do you do with that freedom now that you have it? Do you invest that time wisely back into the business, or do you go to the golf course or focus on what you want to do rather than following the system? So in addition to me learning that, I've also learned your origin story. I love it. Keep repeating those patterns, because apparently it makes you so successful, and you make those patterns successful. So keep on doing it.
Thanks.
Thank you to both of you. And thank you to those listening in today to the Franchise Woman podcast, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships forged. Make sure to like, comment, most importantly, share this interview with others within the franchise world and those that want to come into the franchise world. Make sure to share it. And we'll see you next week on another episode.
Bye. Thank you.